I'm Bob Orr, along with Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you.
Bob, great to see you.
Big news developing now from the president's trip to Southeast Asia. What's the significance here?
Well, we've seen flickers of diplomatic opening. This is how President Obama has talked about this from Burma. Burmese leadership has sent signals that they want a rapprochement with the West. We talked about this about 3 weeks ago on Flashpoints, where the Burmese junta, led by a new leader, had signaled not only that they wanted to deal with Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel Peace Prize winning democratic activist in Burma, but also were willing to look at the release of other political prisoners and also beginning to talk with the West in a more open way. And so that has been received well by the United States. Part of the dynamic here, Bob, and we talked about it on Flashpoints, is the Burmese have chafed a bit at the Chinese influence in Burma, and they've rejected a major power plant, hydro plant deal in the north. That has created some resentment with China. But this is important. This is important because it's a diplomatic opening with a regime that we've not had relations with for a long time. Secretary Clinton will be the first Secretary of State to visit Burma in, I think, about 50 years. And it gives a signal to the regime that there's a possibility here, if they come through with their commitments, to actually open up and to reestablish relations with the West. For the United States, this is important too, because it not only shows that diplomacy can work, the Obama administration likes that, but you also have a counterpoise to China at a time when the United States tried to make the point that we are a Pacific power, that we're there to stay, and that we're going to certainly counter, if not contain, Chinese expansion. One final point here, Bob. I find it very important and interesting from a political and diplomatic perspective that the president reached out and spoke to Aung San Suu Kyi directly, and he made a point of saying that he did so. That's important for a couple reasons. One, it empowers her, the President of the United States of America speaking directly to her, and in many ways she was the gatekeeper to this engagement. And so that becomes very important. Her role with this rapprochement becomes even more important. Secondly, it's the first time that I can perceive that the president in some ways may have been using his Nobel Peace Prize status to American effect. That is to say, he reached out to a fellow Peace Prize winner, and the two of them talked and coordinated on this diplomatic rapprochement. And so that to me is symbolically very important and may signal that the president sensed an opportunity here not only to empower Aung San Suu Kyi, but to use his own label and leadership for a diplomatic opening.
And the powerful signal to the world is the announcement that Secretary Clinton will be going there. That's a big deal. Who's the audience for this message? Is this a message to China?
Well, there's multiple audiences. First, there's an internal audience within Burma, both the junta to say there can be rewards to opening up and to doing the right things, the types of things like the release of political prisoners that you've committed to and that we want to push you to do. So there's a clear signal to the regime itself that opening up is going to bring rewards. And Secretary Clinton coming to the Capitol is a huge symbol of that potential reward. It's also a symbol to the activists, the peace activists, and Aung San Suu Kyi internally, that there is support, that the West is watching, and that there is support from the West, and that Secretary Clinton, in coming to Burma, is not coming to kowtow to the regime, but in fact is coming as a vanguard for their cause. And so there's an internal dynamic, an audience that we'll be playing to. But I think the China audience is very important here. The United States, just as President Obama announced the placement of troops in northern Australia, Secretary Clinton announced a naval deal with the Philippines. We attended the summit in Honolulu, declaring ourselves a permanent Pacific power. All of this is important as a signal to China that we're not going anywhere and that we are a power to be contended with, and a signal to other allies in the region that we are a power to be leveraged and used to counterpoise against any Chinese expansion.